You know those stories where a simple disagreement between neighbors just completely spirals out of control? Well, today we're diving headfirst into one of those cases. It's a story where a brand new wall becomes the front line in a legal war, pitting a homeowner not just against his neighbor, but against his entire homeowners association. And it all started with this one simple feeling. A homeowner named John Shields took one look at a wall extension his neighbor put up, and he just thought it was an eyesore. But that gut reaction, it kicked off a legal battle that had to be settled by not one, but two different judges. All right, let's set the scene. We are in the Rogers Equestrian Ranch in Queen Creek, Arizona. Now, this is a planned community, which means it's got a homeowners association, an HOA, and a very specific rulebook that everybody agrees to when they buy a house there. And, as you're about to see, that rulebook is at the very heart of this entire mess. So here's the lawsuit in a nutshell. John Shields takes his own HOA to court. He's arguing they had absolutely no right to approve the new wall his neighbor, Joe Johnson, built on their shared property line. And why not? Well, Shields says he never, ever gave his permission. So he's demanding that the HOA step in, enforce the rules, and make his neighbor tear that wall down. Okay, so to figure out who's actually in the right here, we have to do something kind of boring, but super important. We have to read the rule book. It's called the CC&Rs, the Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions. Think of it as the Constitution for the whole neighborhood. And it turns out 3 little rules in this document are going to decide everything. First up, let's call this the neighbor rule. It is crystal clear. If you want to change a shared wall, you need permission from 2 different groups. First, the neighbor you share the wall with. And second, the HOA's design committee. It's like a bank vault that needs 2 keys to open. You gotta have both or you get nowhere. So what's the HOA's job in all this? Well, rule number 2 spells it out. Their committee is there to review projects based on aesthetics. Does it look good? Does it fit in? Does it disrupt the whole vibe of the neighborhood? Their role is basically to be the design police, not a referee in a fight between 2 neighbors. And that brings us to the third and honestly, the most important rule of them all, the enforcement rule. It says that if somebody breaks a rule, the CC&Rs may be enforced by the HOA. Now pay very close attention to that one little word, may. It's about to change the whole game. It's kind of crazy how much legal power can be packed into a single word. See, in the world of law, may is what we call permissive. It means you can do something, it's an option, but you don't have to. On the other hand, shall is mandatory. It means you must do it, no excuses. It's a requirement. And that tiny difference is literally the foundation of the entire court's decision. So, moving on from the legal stuff, let's get back to the people involved. Because before the HOA could even try to make a call, they were stuck in the middle of a classic he said, she said, or in this case, a he said, they said situation with 2 totally different versions of the story. Okay, this timeline is where it all gets really messy. So on October 13th, the neighbor, Johnson, just goes ahead and builds the wall. And here's the kicker. He does it before getting any kind of approval from the HOA. Just 3 days later, Shields makes it official. He doesn't like it. So what happens next? Only then, after the wall is already up and his neighbor is mad, does Johnson submit the plans. The HOA board doesn't even approve the design until months later in January. You can just imagine the position this put the HOA in. And this is exactly why it was so tough for them. On one side, you've got John Shields, who swears he never approved it and says he thought it looked like crap. But then, on the other side, you have 4 different witnesses, including the neighbor's wife and another person who lived nearby, who all testified that Shields was there when they talked about the wall, he never objected, and he even said it looked good right after it was built. Who do you believe? And this really shows you the human side of all this. This isn't just about rules and concrete. The neighbor's wife, Sandy Johnson, testified that this whole conflict had completely destroyed the friendship their families used to have. It's heartbreaking, really. It started with a wall, and it ended a friendship. So the HOA board was stuck between a rock and a hard place, with conflicting stories and a messy timeline. They made their call, and of course, the case ended up in court. So after hearing everything, what did the first judge have to say? Well, the judge broke it all down step by step. First, the HOA's job, according to the rulebook, was just to decide if the wall looked okay. That's it. Second, it was Mr. Johnson's responsibility, not the HOA's, to get his neighbor's approval. And third, and this is the big one, because that enforcement rule used the word may, the HOA had the choice, the discretion, to not get involved in the drama. They were allowed to just stay out of it. So the final verdict came down. The judge found that the HOA did nothing wrong. They acted completely within the power that the community's own rules gave them. Case closed. The petition against the HOA was thrown out. But wait, the story is not over yet. Mr. Shield was not happy with that outcome. He filed for a rehearing, basically saying the first judge made legal mistakes. So the whole case got sent to a brand new judge for a complete do-over. And a do-over is exactly what he got. This new judge had to look at every piece of evidence, all the testimony, and all those rules all over again, pretty much pretending the first hearing never even happened. This was Shield's shot at redemption. And after reviewing everything from top to bottom, what did that second judge find? Well, wouldn't you know it, the exact same thing. The second ruling just hammered home the core lesson from the first one. The neighborhood's own rules put the job of getting a neighbor's permission squarely on the shoulders of the person doing the construction. It was Johnson's job to get Shields okay, not the HOA's job to go around asking for it. So what does this whole saga mean for the rest of us? Honestly, this case is a perfect little guide for understanding who is responsible for what in any community that has an HOA. Let's break it down. As a homeowner, it's on you to know the rules and to speak up early if you have a problem. It's your neighbor's job to get your approval for shared stuff and the HOA's approval for the design. And the HOA, their job is to judge the look of things and enforce the rules reasonably. And remember, often at their own discretion. And that right there is the absolute bottom line. John Shields might have been 100% correct that his neighbor needed his approval. The rules say so, but he pointed the finger at the wrong party. His legal fight wasn't with the HOA, which was just doing its job. His real fight was with his neighbor, Joe Johnson, for breaking the neighbor rule. And that leaves all of us with a really important question to think about, especially if you live in one of these communities. It's easy to get mad at your neighbor, sure, but at the end of the day, the only way to really know who's responsible for what is to understand the exact words written in your HOA's rulebook.